Hello, my name is Mark Gottselig. I'm a Territory Manager with Global Ag Risk Solutions. Global Ag Risk Solutions is a privately owned insurance company that offers a product called Production Cost Insurance. Production Cost Insurance, or PCI, is a full farm revenue-based program. The revenue that is protected under a PCI policy is based on all of your actual costs of all the seed, fert, and chem for the farm, plus a margin over and above that of the farmer's choice. So for example, if the farm uses $150 of seed, fert, and chem, and they choose the $150 extra margin coverage over and above those costs, that means that that farm is insured for $300 an acre. For example, a 10,000 acre farm that's insured for $300 an acre is insured for $3 million of total revenue for their farm. If they can only produce $1.5 million due to a weather event or a pricing loss or a marketing loss, then Global Ag Risk Solutions will create a claim that will bring you up to that $3 million of insurable limit. So ultimately, it's that simple. Global Ag Risk will insure you for X amount of dollars. If you can't create that in revenue, a claim will trigger and will bring you up to that insurable limit. That is an example that I'd like you to remember as I'm going through the description of PCI, because essentially it is that black and white. So, why do people insure? So why do farms buy crop insurance? There are a number of reasons why farms will purchase crop insurance to protect their farm. From weather events to confidence to continue farming from year to year, to protecting equity or what the farm has grown to in their past. Some say that they can't afford not to have insurance. Others say my banker requires it to protect my loans or my lines of credit. Whatever the reason that you have, Global Ag Risk Solutions would like to give you one more reason. And that reason is the confidence to become more profitable on your farm. That's what this policy will give you, an added confidence to farm a little bit more aggressively or market more aggressively to add more profits to your business operation. The only qualification requirement that we have at Global Ag is for farms to have accrual financial statements. Now, accrual financial statements will allocate all expenses and income relating to that crop year. So for example, if a farmer pre-buys fertilizer in December for that upcoming crop year, that expense will be accrued forward to that crop year and accounted accordingly for. So that's the difference between cash and accrual financials. Cash statements may not capture that, accrual financial statements do. When we analyze the accrual financial statements in our office, we break down the cost into three different categories to a per acre basis. The very first category that we break down costs is labor, power, and machinery. And these are costs of getting the job done. So different examples of costs underneath this category may be fuel, labor costs, custom work, machinery leases, machinery repair, all those different examples to get the job done. The other category would be land, building, and finance. And this is the cost of being in the place that you're farming. So for instance, land rent, repairs to buildings, building depreciation, interest on buildings, or interest on land loans. These are all examples of land, building, and finance. So these are called our fixed costs. These costs will happen whether or not you put in a crop, whether or not you have a good crop or a crop that isn't so successful. They may vary a little bit, but ultimately they stay fixed throughout the growing season. And the last category that we will analyze costs are your variable input costs. These are all your seed, fertilizer, and chemical costs. And of course, as I said before, these costs relate directly to your PCI policy in that we cover all the actual costs of all your seed, fertilizer, and chemical. When we break down those costs, we will then create a farm financial summary for every farm who wants to be quoted. And this is a service that we do for farms that would like a quote. As you can see here in the financial summary, we break everything down to a per acre basis. So we take your revenue down to a per acre basis, and the bottom numbers as we go through here are your 5-year average. Our inputs, which is the seed, fert, and chem, on a per acre basis, right down to a 5-year average. Gross margin, how we calculate gross margin is we take your total revenue and we subtract all your costs of your seed, fert, and chem or your inputs, and that will equal your gross margin to your farm. And the last three columns are all your fixed costs that I talked about previously, your labor, power, machinery, land, building, finance, and then the sum of those two costs. So what we do at Global Ag is we take a look at your gross margins, and we will quote based on the strengths of your gross margins. So this is 100% individualized coverage that you're purchasing from Global Ag. We do not consider townships, area averages, provincial averages, risks areas. All those different things that you're used to with traditional crop insurance are not a part of how we quote. It's just on your farm and your successes of your farm. So we look at that bottom number, that $349 in this example. The stronger that number, the better the quote. The higher the coverage that we're willing to offer your farm, and the lower the premium. So that is the number that we are looking at to quote. What farms have to realize, though, when they're buying our insurance is what else do they need to insure for besides their yield, which they're traditionally doing. Remember, this is a revenue product, not a yield product. So we teach farms to look at their costs, and especially their fixed costs, as you can see in this example. And by the way, this is a Western Canadian farm, a very successful Western Canadian farm that we have here in front of us. So as you can see, the total fixed costs as we go through the years have increased dramatically, and especially in the last few years. And this is what we're seeing from most financial statements that we're looking at. The costs of farming have increased dramatically. So you should be looking to insure your farm differently than you did 5, 7, or 10 years ago. The variable input costs have also risen dramatically in the last few years. With advancements of varieties, with genetics, with seed treatments, with fungicides, and all those different things that will produce better yields and better quality, as you can see, there's a cost that's increased to that. That will, again, lead to hopefully better yields and better quality, but as you can see, over the last few years, those costs have dramatically risen as well. So again, these are the costs that we will insure you for dollar as you go through your growing season. Just a point here, a very successful farm does have different times that they will have hardships on their farm, as you can see in 2005. And I believe this farm in 2014 went through a little bit of a hardship as well. So the trends in costs of farming have obviously increased over the past little while. What we have done is looked at a study of 150 farms over from 2007 to 2013, and this is a clean study, meaning that there's no farms that exited from the study or came into the study partway through. So 150 farms right from 2007 to 2013. And you'll notice that these farms saw a dramatic increase in their average of seed, fert, and chem, their direct variable inputs from 2007 to 2013, as well as their average fixed cost per acre, so that land building and finance, labor, power, machinery costs have also increased, and you can see both have over 70% increase in the last little bit. Global Ag Risk Solutions follows the trend in farming because we go on a 5-year rolling average of your farm expenses. So that means that within our insurance, you can insure it properly right down to a cost and an assured revenue for your farm that you can count on as you're going through your farming year. When farms know their cost per acre, and especially their fixed cost per acre, they can then start planning their insurance and planning their year. So for example, if a farm sees that their fixed cost, their total of their labor, power, machinery, their land building and finance equals $205 an acre, those costs will be consistent whether they put in a crop, whether they grow a successful crop or not so successful crop. Again, it might vary a little bit, but they stay fixed throughout your growing season. So if a farmer in this example has $205 an acre of fixed costs, they then can go to their quote and they can figure out how much that they want to cover with the GARS policy, with the Global Ag Risk policy for their farm. So let's say here their risk is $205 an acre, and they choose from their quote the $150 level of insurance. So from there, their planning is set. That is whether they grow a crop or not. If they can't put in a single acre, they know that they have that $150 an acre of insurance for their farm. So when the farmer begins to seed, they know that they have $150 of fixed cost protection for their farm. And as we go through the seeding, know that in Global Ag Risk Solutions, we are covering you dollar for dollar in all the risks that you're bringing on for your operation. So in the seeding phase, when you have the costs of your seed treatments, the fertilizer that you're bringing with it, your risks do go up, but also your coverage goes up too. We're covering you dollar for dollar as you're going through your season. When your in-crop season begins and you start spraying herbicides or any type of top dressing that you might do, again, your costs go up, your risks go up, but your Global Ag Risk Insurance is covering you dollar for dollar. When you start spraying fungicides, we're covering those costs of your fungicides, and your insurance, again, will go up dollar for dollar for everything that you're putting into your crop. And finally, with desiccation, right before harvest, your risks will climb again, but also your GARS insurance climbs with you. So that by harvest, you're all in, you have all of your costs that are associated with that crop year, and as you can see, that $55 an acre that you have taken on yourself at the beginning of the year in your planning phase stays consistent. So you know exactly your floor of revenue that you can count on, whether you have a good crop, whether you have a crop that's not so successful. So in the end, if your harvest is good, everybody is celebrating, you made some money on your farm. If the harvest is poor, we're covering all those costs in between what you made on your farm to the insurable limit that we have on your policy. Another way to look at it is this next slide that you can see here. A farm again realizes they have $205 of fixed costs, and they decide that they will take, according to the policy and according to the quote, they'll choose the $150 level. And as they go through all the actions of farming, through their seeding, through their in-crop spraying, their fungicide treatments, and finally the desiccation, their GARS coverage will climb for dollar every time you put any type of grocery into the dirt. So you can see in this example here, the production cost insurance went from $150 an acre to start with, that's your fixed costs, and grew to $369 an acre once you were done your desiccation. So ultimately, again, in an example, a 10,000 acre farm would be insured right here for $3.69 million of revenue for their operation. If they can't produce that, a claim will trigger and will bring them up to that insurable limit.
My name is Blake Brownridge. I am owner of Higher Yield Ag Solutions. I farm in southeast Saskatchewan, and I farm roughly around 10,000 acres of small grains. If you're a producer that puts everything that you can into your crop, 110%, then this is a program for that producer. What I really like about Global Ag Risk is I'm rewarded for what I do on my farm. As my gross margin increases, decreases, it's a total business model of my farm to a certain extent, and my coverage goes over and above that, or where I need my coverage to fit in with my farm. That's what I like about it. If I try to do different things and go out there and prove that they work and I'm a step ahead of somebody else, then I know that I'm covered for the day that that doesn't work. What appealed to us on our farm on Global Ag Risk Solutions was the idea of insuring our farm on the dollars, not specifically on a crop or a coverage or a bushel, and the independence, not being tied into our neighbors or the different operations around Saskatchewan, not necessarily here in the southeast, but kind of developing an insurance program for our farm. When we called into the office and told them that we had our hail, there was right away no hesitant on, okay, well, you're insured for this amount of dollars, go ahead and do whatever you need to do to get that crop back up and running. So you do sleep a little bit easier knowing that if you, like we had just finished spraying 3,000 acres of fungicide the night before the hailstorm came. So that was on a majority of the land that was hailed 100%. So very disheartening to pick yourself up in the morning and go back and wonder what you're going to do. But we knew if the opportunity arose that we could spray it again, that the coverage was there. And the nice part about Global was that if our crop was late, which it was, and we did freeze, we were insured on that end also, not just getting a check for hail insurance or a check for this or a check for that, but we were covered right through the growing season. That's what makes the whole concept a better thing for me. It probably lets us be a little more aggressive because we know what we're insured for going into it. Lets us diversify into some larger input crops. Corn, soybeans, sunflowers are getting to be pretty common practice in this area. And it's let us forward contract a lot more grain with knowing that we have a dollar per acre coverage, not necessarily a bushel coverage, or there'll be a difference on that. So what I would tell other producers that are thinking about Global Ag Risk is to probably know your numbers very well, sit down, talk to them in the office, understand what your coverage is for, and use that coverage to benefit your farm, and know that at the end of the day that you are covered for the dollars that you put in your crop. And it definitely lets you be more aggressive, and I think it's an easier way to farm. Just you sleep a lot better at night. The only thing I'd add about Global Ag Risk is so far being in the first year here, working with everybody was really good. We probably had more contact with them than we have had with our other insurance the last 5 or 6 years, just the way our growing season went. So in saying that, I think it was a very easy program. The paperwork was easy to use. So no, overall, it was a very good experience.
So as you can see, this product really encourages progressive farming. We challenge farms to take a hard look at their agronomy, and if they can do anything different with their seed, fert, and chem to produce more bushels and better quality, to get out there and do it, because we're covering those costs every step of the way. As well, in marketing, it is a great tool to use to become more aggressive in your marketing as well. If you think about it, we are ensuring a revenue, a floor revenue for your farm. So if you get caught up in a marketing loss where you have to buy back a contract, well, that buyback will affect your revenue. If that buyback affects your revenue, such as drops your revenue below what we're insuring you for, a claim will trigger and will bring you back up to that level. So as you can see, this program isn't an insurance, but more than that, it gives farms that extra added confidence to farm more aggressively, to market more aggressively, which equates to larger profits on their farm. We encourage farms to, at the very least, get a quote, because until you know your cost per acre and what your quote reads when it comes to coverage levels, you really can't make an informed decision as if the insurance will work for your farm or not. To get a quote, we will ask you to fill out an authorization to release financial information, and what this does is this gives us permission to contact your accountant, and we're going to ask for the last 5 years of accrual financial statements. If you do not have 5 years experience, we can also quote you if you have 3 or 4 years experience. It just has to go through a process called special acceptance. And if you are in succession and you only have 1 or 2 years experience, we can also go off of your parents' financial records to quote your farm. So the point is that it doesn't matter your farming experience, we try to work with the individual to provide a quote. Each year, more and more financial institutions are recognizing our product and using it in some form of risk mitigation to help farms out in their growing season. Because this is a revenue insurance and not just a yield insurance, we are not coming to your farm when you are in claim to measure bins. We measure books. So what we ask for is your accrued financial statements year-end books, or an interim year-end book, or if the farm's own records are in good shape and their general ledger will match to their bank statements, we can also use the farm's records as well. In the event of a claim, we want to get money into the hands of the farmers very quickly. So we will pay up to 60% upon verification of those records in those 3 different examples. Once we have those records, up to 60% will be paid to the farms at that time. The 40% will be paid either after they're moved at their entire inventory, they sold it in the upcoming months, or May the 1st, whichever comes first. So on May the 1st, if they still have inventory carried over in their bins, we'll do an evaluation at that time. We'll get how many bushels they have. Pricing will be done according to May 1st prices in their general trading area. And according to those figures, we will evaluate the last 40%. So again, up to 60% will be paid upon verification of your records, and then the 40% will be paid after you've moved all your inventory or May 1st.
I can remember the night very well because it's a big deal when a storm comes through like that and you go out there and you look and it looks like it's been combined and your cart kind of breaks in half. You do have these big payments when you're farming because it's a big business, and it's really nice not to have that extra stress and that extra negativity around.
It didn't affect us like it normally would have, Yeah, we got hail. Well, we got hail insurance and we've got Global Ag Risk, so we'll just take it to yield and see what happens. You're not going to bed wondering how you're going to make your combine payments or your tractor payments. We farm right around Caramere, Alberta, little town, east central Alberta. And we farm roughly 9,000 acres of cropland and 2,000 acres of hay.
We're a very tight-knit family operation. Every step of the way, everybody remains involved. That's a really, really important part of our operation.
We were at a meeting with the retail business, and one of the other retailers were talking about it. They come up, they heard about this new insurance in Saskatchewan, and he wasn't quite sure about it, gave me the name, and so I went online and looked it up, and then I talked to Grant at one of the farm forums, and I thought it was too good to be true. Yeah, I didn't believe what he was trying to tell me. I thought there was a loophole somewhere that a guy could get out of, because insurance doesn't usually work that way.
We had a lot of conversations going back and forth about what we should do, because it's not exactly a traditional path in terms of insurance.
Global ag risk is dollars and cents on what you grow. So 50 bushel an acre wheat crop at $5, you get $250 worth of return. And then you can add hail insurance on top per acre. Say like we went $100 an acre. So they have a premium of X amount of dollars per acre for $100 there. And then plus, on a side note, we have global ag for say $250 roughly. So we're covered for $350 an acre. The risk is always there on canola. And I always wanted to straight cut it. I never ever had the opportunity to be covered to do it. The variety that they came out with this year was quite expensive. It was a good variety. It was matched for our area, so I pulled the trigger and I did it, and it was awesome. I'm going to continue doing it. All I needed was the risk coverage to do it, and trying to cover the expensive seed, and it's there now. So I'm pretty sure those two swathers are going to go down the road, and it's going to put more money in my pocket. Global ag is there. They're extremely cost effective. They're pushing you, use fungicide, use a pedigreed seed, grow that crop. Don't skimp out on stuff. There's no influence from Global Ag to tell you how to run your farm. They just tell you, here's your platform, go and farm it. In my opinion, I think it's tailor-made for me, because I like to step outside the box and try new and different exciting things to be more progressive, because you always need that progression. And without being covered, I wouldn't be as risky, but now it's a lot of fun. Farming is fun.
Licensed advisors across Western Canada play a key role in the education of our product. If you'd like to find an advisor in your area, go to our website, which is agrisksolutions.ca. In the top right-hand corner, you'll see a Find an Advisor tab. Look for the town that's close to you, find the advisor. They would be very happy to come and visit with you across your kitchen table to explain our product and how it will benefit your farm. Thank you for your time today. If you have any other questions, go to our website again, which is agrisksolutions.ca, or call our office, or again, find an advisor in your area. Thank you very much.